DA Town Hall. And today, I believe, is December 14th, 2025. And a lot to report back from the past few days in Los Angeles, where most of you probably don't know the Democratic National Committee had its quarterly meetings. You might have caught one or two stories in Politico, maybe one in The Hill. That was about it for coverage through yesterday. Now, the last time the DNC met outside of DC was in Minneapolis, and there was quite an amount of coverage. That coverage that was oftentimes focused on the activities of a close PDA ally from the state of Florida, a young woman who put forward a resolution around Gaza that received a lot of international press. Um, it was very conspicuous that the DNC was not interested in having the people of Southern California know that they were having their meetings here. There was no local coverage in advance of the event or during the event, so that's just noteworthy in and of itself. I'm guessing, I don't know. I did have the opportunity to talk on a few instances and some of it very constructive with the DNC chair, Ken Martin. And it's very much uh, was a meeting in which Ken was very central to the meeting. And certainly PDA through the meeting strengthened our presence as really the inside outside progressive organization in the country. I mean, certainly Larry Cohen was there from our revolution, but we had a much larger PDA contingency. And there's a lot going on that's very good in terms of resolutions with the DNC. But again, I think almost really the top line I would take from it was that they're not interested right now in engaging the public. I don't believe that's a good tactic. I think they should be engaging the public. I think they're fearful of demonstrations. None of that was expressed to me directly. But what else? How else what can you conclude from the absence of all advance notice to the public? It was in a downtown hotel in Los Angeles, and so the meeting took place in a very quiet environment inside the hotel, and business went forward in terms of taking the measure of things in terms of progressive leaning or non-progressive leaning for the Democratic Party. There was no particular clear barometers, say maybe there were last time with some high-profile resolutions, but the progressive resolutions that were advanced last time continue to be advanced. I don't think there was widespread dismay among the progressives about anything being staunched in that regard. There was a lot of celebration of the recent Democratic Party victories. By the way, Afton Bain is seen not only by everybody I spoke to as having performed spectacularly well, and for the people who knew that of PDA's role, a lot of gratitude was expressed to PDA for our role in that. But I think everybody actually saw in Afton Bain a future national talent of the highest order. And there was even readily expressed the sentiment that Afton may not have won the district, but there are many districts in much of the country where Afton Bain or a person such as Afton Bain would do very, very well. Generally, PDA was received very well. I've been at a few of these now, but we did the event on Thursday, and by Friday when I was there, I was astonished. I couldn't walk a few feet without knowing people, with having very good relations. Look, we are not. Having said all that, if you're on the call and you are someone frustrated with the operation of the mainstream of the Democratic Party, we are understood to be outside and unwavering in our progressive advocacy. But I do think they still recognize us, which I think is very much the correct interpretation for the political moment and has been for years, but even more so now, that we as progressives need to fight in the primaries, fight for the direction of the party, to continually reiterate that the base of the party on policy after policy after policy are overwhelmingly with us, but that after the primary season, we unify and that there can be no wavering in that and no illusions about third partyism at this moment. And I always say this because nobody's going to break for a third party when splitting the anti-fascist forces are going to result in a clear victory for the fascists. So the game's inside the Democratic Party, and they know that that means there's added pressure from the progressive wing because we are the majority wing in terms of the base voters, but not the donors still. And of course, the unwillingness to break from the donor class provides a lot of dramatic tension at a space like the DNC meetings. And if you look at some of the major issues that face the American people, and I think really in California, the ones that really stand out are housing costs, and healthcare. We know that the money that comes into the party is going to try to block the sentiment of the majority of the party. But very good meetings, and I think PDA came out a bit much stronger. The event on Thursday night flowed well, and somehow word got around about it much more than one would have thought, given the absence of press coverage of everything related to the DNC. It might have been it was only because it was the only substantive event that was sort of scheduled on the outside, and the sort of message of it was understood that we feel that the party needs to save American democracy by adopting the progressive agenda and providing for the American public again what is still in the minds of most Americans as almost a birthright, that they live in a prosperous society, that the middle class can have access to an American dream, and that tremendous opportunities available for the public. And of course, we add to that a very, very serious focus on addressing and attacking poverty as a strategy further to lift up the middle class and actually to create an economic boom, which is what would happen if you took really 100 million Americans and lifted them from poverty or near poverty into the middle class. And I expressed that at the DNC Poverty Council yesterday, and that was very well received as well. So that's my report back from the DNC, and we'll return to it maybe in a little while or later in the call. Today we have two guests we have lined up, and they're both very exciting projects. One from the state of Indiana, where the goal has been achieved, and we have Fady Qaddoura, an Indiana state senator, who's going to join us and talk about something really phenomenal that happened in a state that's been, except for the 2008 general election, very much a red state for a very, very long time now in the state of Indiana. But the population and the state Senate blocked the redrawing of districts. So basically protected two Democratic seats from the intention of the Trump administration and the national GOP to redraw the state to 9 Republican districts and 0 Democratic districts. And this was defeated in the Senate by some Republican senators joining with the unity of the Democratic members to defeat the redistricting effort. And Fady Qaddoura from the Indiana State Senate will be joining us to talk about that. After that, we'll be joined by someone familiar to many of us, Hanya Jodet-Barnes, director of PDA's Greater Middle Eastern Alliances. It's a unique national chapter that's getting relaunched. And as I say that, I think now's the time to also say that, I'm aware of what happened on the beach in Australia. We don't know the motivations of the people who killed the Jewish people who were celebrating Hanukkah on the beach. I think there's widely seen as most likely relating to events in Israel and Gaza. Hanya's with us. Hi, Hanya. Hanya, you're the greatest. And just to say, first of all, of course, this is a tragedy when anything like this happens. I was at a press conference on Thursday morning, unrelated to our event on Thursday night, with pro-Palestinian activists who don't want to see us giving weapons to Israel when Israel is using them to slaughter civilians. And one of the things I said, and of course this is before the events of the past however many hours in Australia, whatever that occurred, it's hard to get the clock right. It's in Australia, right? Always difficult to figure that out. But 18 hours ago, whatever it was, 12 hours ago, it was before then. But I very much view Israeli state action and the American sanctioning of Israeli state action as, broadly speaking, stoking anti-Semitism and contributing to the rise of anti-Semitism across the world. Somebody is Jewish, self-identified very publicly, so I feel that very strongly. So we actually, pro-Palestinian activists, and I said, even Cori Bush, who brought forward the ceasefire deal and had to deal with AIPAC money destroying her campaign, her re-election campaign, that Cori Bush is a great ally of the Jewish people. In fact, the inversion of what people will say. Rashida Tlaib is a great ally of the Jewish people around the world. And I think we have to understand that. I think that's just materially true. People who call for peace and for the staunching of this violence in Israel and Palestine, it's to the welfare of Jewish people. And that's in no way to excuse what happened. These are people taking horrible actions, and it has to be wholly condemned, and we wholly condemn it. And our thoughts go out to all the people who are there and all the family members, of course. Hopefully stated in a non-banal way, but because it's not just saying that, but also to demand that actions take place, and actions that have to take place are for peace and for justice of all people in the regions. And that will always be our position at PDA. So we got this show coming up here, and why don't we try to bring Hanya forward earlier in the show, and then Senator Qaddoura, when he joins, will follow Hanya since she's here. But
Alan, it is my apologies for my interruption. The good senator should be joining us at 15 after.
okay, well, great. Then Hanya will follow after, if that's okay, Hanya. And
Thank
we
you.
also have
Thank you,
great news.
Hanya.
In the meantime, though, before we then go to Mike and then we go to Donna for her thoughts, and then the senator, then Hanya across this hour. If you have the link to Hartzell Gray's interview, which I haven't seen yet, with TYT and Cenk Uygur, please, if there's a link to that, put it in the chat. Our friend Hartzell Gray not only made a great contribution, a spectacular contribution to our event on Thursday evening that got a very, very warm applause from the audience live at UTLA. He's, this thing is building momentum, and he apparently just did, I've just been told word of mouth, an astonishing interview on TYT with Cenk Uygur. So hopefully we can get that link into the chat and we can
Yeah.
do that. Yeah,
Alan,
thank
we
you.
actually have Adrastos de Silva here also with us. He's going to be able to share that in the chat. This interview was done on Friday. I felt like a stage mom sitting there just taking pictures and just like snapping. And I've never seen Chang so emotional and so welcoming. And he gave so much space and screen time to Hartzell, which was so incredible. He talked about policies. He talked about his vision for the fourth congressional district. He talked about the fight. He talked about socialism. And it was just a beautiful gathering of the mind. So if Adrastos is here, if he has access to sharing the link in the chat, it'll go up on our social media as well. So he'll share the social media handles with us as well. But yeah, Alan, it's magnificent.
It's amazing to see Hartzell grow into the role of a candidate with a message that resonates across the country, because his contribution to the event on Thursday at UTLA was spectacular in that regard, and the gravitas he sort of displayed in his communication was brilliant. So look, before we're now going forward with the schedule, get back to Hanya with PDA Greater Middle East Alliances in about 30 minutes probably, and we'll also return to the question of Hartzell Gray before the hour is out. But right now, let's hear from Mike Fox with our PDA to-dos for the hour, then Donna Smith, then over to the Honorable State Senator from Indiana. So Mike Fox, take it away.
And can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. My number one to-do is, everybody, thank Hanya for being a family member and a sister who, when she gets a ping that, hey, we might need you a little earlier, bang, she's there. Thank you, Hanya. Thank you for your open-mindedness here as well. And no insult intended to the good senator. We had some moving parts going. He should be with us soon. And I'm really looking forward to him telling us all about the huge victory in Indiana. All right, so as always, number one to do on this call is revel in the fact that you're surrounded by people who get it here each and every Sunday, 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific. We are here building community, learning lots of good stuff, but most importantly, identifying goals and attaining them for the upcoming week. Okay, so we'll be dropping ways that you can participate in the chat. And please do take notes. There's going to be a lot of good information coming to you here, and you're going to want to be able to use it in your outreach over the upcoming week, okay? And so from a time and treasure standpoint, the to-dos: time, phone bank, phone bank, phone bank, phone bank. Our goal is 10 new phone bankers today. We got a lot of phone bankers on the call with us already. If you'd be so kind, gang, phone bankers, toss in the chat. You're a phone banker. Invite folks to join you. Go to pdamerica.org/volunteer. You'll be talking to fellow PDA folk, making sure they know, number one, wishing them a happy holiday, which I wish all of you as well. And then secondly, making sure they know what's cooking, how they can get plugged in, and how they can make a real difference. Okay, so it's pdamerica.org/volunteer. From a donation standpoint, we take great pride here at PDA in the fact that the majority of our work is done by volunteer labor, and we take pride in that. However, we do need to keep the lights on, so we would ask for solidarity on this call. I'm not going to ask you for a big fat check. If that can happen, wonderful. But if not, totally cool. What we're looking for is solidarity. So when I toss that donation link in, just throw in a couple of bucks. Our goal is for everybody to be supporting each other in this endeavor. Okay. So our goal is 100% solidarity. And we'll be back at the top of the hour to see where we're at on our goals. Okay. And that being said, back to you, Alan.
Thank you so much. And look, we are going to, over the next few weeks, going to ask people to dig a little deeper and see if they can support PDA in the coming year. We are going to be trying to raise some money in the last 15 days of this year and through all of the channels we can in the PDA family. And it's important that we move into 2026 fiscally sound. And in that regard, we're not exactly where we want to be right now. We're not in crisis, but we're not exactly where we want to be. And we would really love if people can donate. Again, donating into the link today will be a fantastic way to support us. And, we'll be being in contact with people, but if you can donate now, it would be the best way. And we'll thank you, of course. And as we get in touch with people who can support PDA over the next 15 days. But yeah, we definitely do need some funds. So thank you for any donation you can make. Donna Smith, how you doing, Donna Smith?
I'm doing fine. How are you, Alan? It sounds like the DNC's been relatively successful. That's good.
Yeah.
This is a good thing. Yeah, I think folks can see behind me. I was lucky enough to speak in Australia some years ago for the Australian nurses and spoke about healthcare policy and why they wouldn't want to go in this direction. But my heart is certainly with people in Australia today who are dealing with this mass casualty event. It is also, and I usually like to be very positive here, but it is the 32nd anniversary of a mass shooting here in Colorado at a Chuck E. Cheese pizza parlor where my son worked. And four of his coworkers, Marge, Ben, Sylvia, and Colleen, were shot and killed. For a fifth coworker, Bobby Stevens, was shot and survived. But I want people to know, you're hearing me talk about it 32 years later. That's how much damage it does to survivors' families to have this kind of violence, this random violence happen all over the world and a lot in the United States. I know PDA and many organizations stay away from that third rail of politics, which is gun laws. It's so hard to dive into that issue, and yet we must dive into this issue, along with diving into the issue of why we have so many angry people, not only in our society, but worldwide, who think the only answer is to shoot other innocent people or people they consider not innocent. Violence is not the answer. So I'm thinking of all those people all over the world today who are dealing in some way with the aftermath of gun violence. It isn't easy. It changes people forever. It changes how they interact in the world and who they trust and who they don't trust. So please, on that note, be watching for that. Another thing I saw Carly mentioning in the chat, which really bothered me this week too, the man in the White House right now says some pretty horrific things. We all know that, but his use of the word retard is beyond horrible. And I hope that everybody will say that's unacceptable. We don't use that terminology in our country and shouldn't in the world. We have so many amazing people with different gifts among us, and it's a tragedy that we have a man who talks like this among us. So let's work on not doing that. Thank you to Hanya. You are an amazing gift to PDA and to everybody who knows you and who is lucky enough to work with you. And I'm grateful that you came early, and the senator may already be here. I don't want to take too much time. And Mike in Indiana, good on you, Indiana. Hey, come on. This is great. My home state of Illinois is next door, so create a Midwest like powerhouse, right? Thank you, Alan. Back to you.
Thank you. And, on PDA and gun control, I do think we support the most progressive positions. It's true that we don't highlight it much. I think I've said on this call that, while I do recognize maybe this stuff should be organized around population density, but that probably wouldn't really help the American situation. I'm pretty old school on it. I support the, more or less Western European positions of almost full, illegality, almost all guns. I go back to John Lennon being killed by a handgun, and in my, I remember that when that happened in 1980, and I wrote an article for my high school paper calling for complete, guns should be illegal, all of them, handguns, everything. And
Yeah,
um,
I just have never understood what the need is.
yeah, and yeah, and I know that there's a lot of guns in places like Canada, and there's a low murder rate, but they're hunting guns and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't understand the proliferation in America. It's a horrible thing, and it creates the deaths of so many people. And thank you, Donna, for highlighting that. I appreciate that.
Of course. And
Yeah.
thank you to all of you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you. And Therese, who has her hand up. I don't think we're going to be getting to questions for quite a while. And we will be muting the chat during for about 25 minutes, probably through Hanya's presentation, just out of respect for our featured guests. The chat can be very distractive, and we do ask people to listen to our featured guests. And the next guest up is the state senator from Indiana, and Mike Olis from the great state of Indiana will be doing the introductions. Mike, take it away. Thank you, Donna.
Hey, Don and Alan. How's it going today? Great to hear y'all. Love PDA Nation because we are all across the country organizing in the bluest of blues, the reddest of reds, and making differences everywhere. And this week in Indiana, where I live, my Republican state representative and my Republican state senator voted no against redistricting, mid-district redistricting. Uh, the people of Indiana rose up and said, we are not going to be bullied. We don't believe in cheating. We believe in democracy. Now, Indiana is still a very gerrymandered state. That's why we have super minorities and super majorities, and it only a 7-2 congressional delegation. But what we do have is a grassroots that has emerged and fought back. I'm looking at all the Indiana folks I see on this call. I see people from all across the state who I know personally on this call today. So it's shout out to Hoosier Nation, number one in football now, number one in stopping red state mid district gerrymandering. And so when I was thinking about this week's call and who might be a great person to invite, um, wanted to reach out to State Senator Fady Qaddoura, who is just the state senator to my east, and somebody who've gotten to know very well. And I want Fadi to be able to tell his story, but I know that gun violence is part of his journey and his story also, and he's lost a loved one. And so, as we think about today and violence, you know, we have some work to do. So Senator Qaddoura, are you with us?
Yes, good afternoon, Mike, and everyone else on the call. I'm with you.
Great. And Senator Qaddoura, we're good friends and have got to know each other, running into each other at hundreds of meetings over the last couple of years. Could you, for those who don't follow Indiana politics, can you just introduce yourself and let us know how it's going?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, my heart goes out to all of the victims of the senseless shooting that took place. As a family member, of someone who lost a loved one to gun violence in the United States, as someone who just completed another memorial for Sandy Hook students and teachers just a few days ago. I can tell you these wounds never heal. We just learn how to cope with them. And I pray that we unite as a nation to change our policies and to change our culture and to change our political will so that we don't add one more name to that unfortunate list or that club by which more families across our nation and across the world, unfortunately, have to join that club. Many empty seats at the kitchen tables, and many families are hurting. And I fiercely oppose violence, especially nowadays in Indiana. We've just lived through that over the last few weeks, the political violence and the threats of political violence. We should never revert to violence to revert political or policy differences, and we should never revert to violence for any reason. I think as I joined, I heard Alan, I think, briefly mentioned the issue of legalities of guns. I've always debated on the Senate floor in Indiana. Um, Guns were invented to harm, not to spread peace. And while I understand that throughout the history of humanity, wars were justified to bring peace, it should be always the last resort. And we should not always revert to violence to um, if we disagree with others. So I appreciate you for remembering those families. Please keep them in your thoughts and in your prayers. And I understand that thoughts and prayers are enough as a family member who lived through these experiences. But for today, we send them light, we send them our thoughts and our prayers. And tomorrow is a new day, and we fight again to protect as many folks as we can in our nation. Mike, thank you for your leadership. I enjoyed working with you over the last few years in Indiana. Fellow friends on this call, my siblings, my name is Fady, which is a very common name in the United States. Um, and that was supposed to be a joke. I can't see your faces, so if you're not laughing, it's okay. Um, but the I was born for a Muslim Palestinian family, came to the United States after high school, landed in Louisiana. For 6 years in middle school and high school, I worked in so many different jobs, from construction to bookstores to pushing carts on the street, selling books and clothing items, to be able to buy my airline ticket to freedom and to prosperity and to pursue the American dream so that I can take care of my mom and dad so that they have never to work again. That was my only dream in life. Landed in the New Orleans, Louisiana. Um, Shortly after, in 2001, I met my wife, born and raised in who was born and raised in the United States. 10 days before 9/11, her brother was killed at her family business. He was 25 years old. 4 years later, in August of 2005, 3 weeks after my oldest daughter was born, we became homeless after Hurricane Katrina, where we lived in Louisiana, and we lost everything A to Z. We had to resettle in Houston, Texas. We rebuilt from scratch, and uh, tens of thousands of strangers from across the country came to Houston to help strangers that they've never met before with no expectation of anything in reciprocity for their kindness and their act of charity or philanthropy. And I decided to, I went through the motions of actually going through Katrina, but I refused to take a free meal. I worked so hard in my life, and it broke my dignity to accept a meal from a stranger. So I offered nonprofit organizations to work for them in exchange to give my family a meal for today or for that day. And I got engaged in fundraising and supporting evacuees and going back to the city of New Orleans. And I loved it. And I felt fulfilled that I was changing the lives of others. And I think it was my DNA was being rewired over a period of 25 years without me recognizing what my purpose is or was. And as someone who pursued a bachelor's and master's in computer science, one day I woke up and I told my wife, this is not for me. And I decided to be like the strangers who flew and drove from across the United States to Houston, to be that person who can extend kindness and generosity and love and compassion to those who are at the most vulnerable moments in their lives. So I've pursued a second master's in public administration, a PhD in public policy and philanthropy, moved to Indianapolis, where at the age of 29, my first job was an intern in the Indiana State Senate on 45 years. So 16 years ago, I was an intern in the same place that I serve in today. And that led to subsequent employment opportunities working for the Department of Workforce Development, the Family and Social Services Administration, helping expand the Affordable Care Act in Indiana, served as a city controller for the capital city of Indianapolis, or of Indiana, which is Indianapolis. And then I decided to run in 2020 after several events. So I'll conclude on my personal side or my personal life story with this. In 2020, I decided to run for the Indiana State Senate in a red state. Again, remember, my name is Fady. I'm a Muslim, I'm a Palestinian, and I live in a red state. A red state that more than 100 years ago was probably the nation's capital for the KKK. And what led to that moment is that throughout my PhD, I taught at the university the civil rights movement and the changes that every century since the inception of our nation and even before the formal formation of our union, how our nation struggled with progress and setbacks on the issues of justice and equality, and how policies and politics and immigration impacted each century and how we responded philanthropically. And I teach young people, or I taught young people at that time, how to stand up for justice, how to mobilize, how to organize, how to be amazing public servants, how to pursue their passion and dreams, and how to change a nation that desperately needs our support, our commitment for justice. I was sitting in my office at the city of Indianapolis as the city controller in 2017. I get a call from the principal of my daughter's school, where I was told that I need to show up at the school. My heart sank as a parent when you get a call from the school. You know, the worst of thoughts come to your mind, especially as a family that lost someone to gun violence. The worst came to my mind. And I rushed from the school. Luckily, it was not gun violence, but my kids were bullied at the school, and that was in the aftermath of the election of Donald Trump. And they were told that the president is going to kick their dads behind and send him to where he came from. And I had that experience on its own was not the first and it's not the last. But I had to make a choice. You know, it has always been personal. Standing for justice is personal. Standing for equality is personal. Standing for compassion is personal. But now it got more personal when you get to my kids. And I decided to run for office not only to be sure that I stand up for the public, but also for my own family, for my own kids, that they don't live in a nation. They were born and raised in this country. They don't know any other country on earth except the United States of America. And to be treated less than equal in their own nation is something that I can't accept. So I ran for office in 2020. I was told by everyone, including some folks from the Democratic Party, that I can't win. I'm an immigrant. My name is different. And I don't fit the profile to win. The Republicans spent $2.4 million to defeat me as a first-time candidate for the Indiana State Senate. And Mike and others know Indiana's politics. You know, you can spend maybe $100,000, 200,000, maybe 300,000 for a competitive seat. But for my seat, they spent $2.4 million. We ran a presidential campaign at a local level. It was a grassroots movement fueled by passion, by commitment to justice and equality. We did not shy away from talking about justice and equality and compassion, standing for working class families, standing for organized labor, being sure that we fight for childcare, for lowering healthcare prices, for being sure that our public schools are funded, our teachers' compensation is increased, and that farmers in our communities are taken care of. And I'm here today not bragging, but I want to share with you the message of hope that, yes, a third world country boy with the name of Fady was able in 2020 to flip a Republican district that was represented for 50 years. I was the first Democrat in the history of Indiana. When Democrats lost every single seat in 2020 in Indiana, I was the only one to flip a Republican district. So I'm here today not to brag about my story, but to reflect on the lessons that I've learned, which tie with the fight that we just had about redistricting. And my message to you, live by hope, believe in hope, pursue hope. It's so powerful. It's not just a slogan. I lived through it when I was homeless. I lived through it when I lost my family members. I lived through it when I didn't have food on the table. I lived through it when everybody doubted that we can make a change in Indiana. I live by it every single day. And the redistricting fight is no different. And we will be more than happy to share a little bit more. But I'm honored to share with you my story so that hopefully as many folks on this call in your different communities across the United States don't seek permission to change the world, run for public office, engage in politics, and let's reform this system that desperately needs to be reformed. So I'll stop at this point, Mike, and I'll be more than happy to follow your lead.
Great. Senator Qaddoura, it's been, normally in December, we're gearing up for a terrible session at the Indiana State House where how can utilities rig the pricing? How can we cause more environmental damage? How can we stop some of these threats, right? But in December, this was an unprecedented moment where there was, normally not a session in December when it comes to the Indiana State House. And it was national news. It was the biggest story in town. And I got, back in the fall when State Senator J.D. Vance was in town, I tried to knock on the door that he was meeting in to see if I could, if he would talk to us. And the cop came over and, was not very polite about my door knocking efforts. But national pressure. The whole nation is watching Indiana. How in a red district with supermajority Republicans, how did I really say the progressive core of Indiana led the way here, out of this abyss. And so just tell us, like, what do you think happened here?
Absolutely. I think first and foremost, I think we were able to transcend the traditional political divide between Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, and others on this issue. Um, few things. One, when we first heard about this attempt by Donald Trump to flip seats across the nation, and Indiana was on the list of states to be considered, that was back in June, July timeframe. So we started actually organizing since then in anticipation that this will happen. And I remember in my district, I've held the first large event across Indiana. We called it the Pro Democracy Fair on September 13th of this year. And we had over 500 people attend. And I want to give credit to the coalition members who helped since then. And that was part of the secret recipe and success for Hoosiers mobilizing against this. So organizations like PDA, Indivisible, MADS Voters, which is local Indiana nonprofit organization, Women for Change, ACLU, Common Cause, the NAACP, you name the, and the list of other organizations. We had more than 30 pro-democracy organizations that came together, and we spoke about the dangers of this plan. In other communities across Indiana, smaller groups met, town halls held by elected officials. We started raising the alarms and sharing, with the public the concerns that we have about elimination of representation of 1.5 million people. Think about it. Two congressional seats, roughly speaking, in Indiana equate to representation by 1.5 million people. So we raised the alarms about how do you, with a strike of a pen, you get rid of 1.5 million people's representation. But here's, I think, what the few reasons why it worked for us in Indiana. First, even though Donald Trump carried Indiana multiple times, he is a very unpopular president at this point, even in Indiana, in a red state. I can tell you that the people we don't call our people in Indiana Indianians, as you might hear. If you say that you might offend someone in our state. We call ourselves Hoosiers. So if Hoosiers are crushed under the heavy weight of inflation, the high prices of groceries and rent, property taxes. Our public schools have not been funded appropriately for over 16 years since 2009, 2010. The folks are struggling with healthcare costs. Our state is ranked among the top 10 states in the nation with the highest healthcare costs. We have more than $2.2 billion worth of medical debt in collection against families who can't afford to pay their medical bills. They are one medical debt or one medical bill away from full bankruptcy, one bill away from being able to decide on to put food on the table or to forego seeking healthcare treatment. And then the president touts how the economy is working for everyone. And to add insult to injury on this, he funds, subsidizes Argentina to the tune of $40 billion with $20 billion for beef at the expense of beef producers in Indiana. Then he fights on the issue of tariffs. And Indiana farmers, especially soybean farmers, are among the top producers and exporters of soybean in the United States to other nations. So on one hand, you have a president who's out of touch, talking about how the economy is working and how he created the best economy for every American, and people are struggling at the grocery store, buying a couple of items, paying double, triple what they used to, and their electric bills are high due to the data center issues in Indiana, investor-owned utilities that are crushing our communities. All of these issues, on one hand, mobilize the public to reject redistricting because they said, this is waste of time. We really want you to work on issues that impact us. I'll give you one more example on policies that failed in Indiana. So for example, during the government shutdown, they disrupted SNAP benefits for 40 million Americans across the United States. Many of them in Indiana are in rural communities who are Trump supporters. And now they had to make a decision. Do we stay loyal to a president who claimed that he cares about us, but we can't put food on the table? We can't provide for our families. We had 20,000 children on a wait list for childcare services. We call it the Child Care Development Fund, which is a national program. But on a local level, instead of funding these children and their families to send them to early childhood education so that their parents can maintain employment and children can access high quality education, the Republicans in the state of Indiana solved the problem not by funding it, but rather by reducing the eligibility threshold for child care development funds. So they eliminated the wait list of 20,000 children who deserve services. When you combine all of these things, I've preached it statewide from corner to corner, from in almost every zip code. I've said any political party, and I told that to my Republican colleagues on the Senate floor when we were debating in the Elections Committee, on second reading, on final reading, any political party that cannot stand on the merits of its ideas is unworthy of governing. And I challenged my Republican friends and I told them, if you firmly believe that you lowered the cost of inflation, if you lowered the cost of groceries, if you are supporting farmers across our nation, if you were able to resolve the issue of the child care wait list, if you lowered healthcare costs in Indiana, if you were able to make housing more affordable, if you funded early childhood education, if you helped eliminate the 2.2 billion worth of medical debt, why not run on these ideas? If you're so confident, run on these ideas and let the public re-elect you based on these ideas. But we know when these ideas, when they can't fix them, when they can't address them, what do? They revert to socially divisive ideas and policies that divide our communities so that they can divide and conquer. So that policy issue was the number one issue that helped us transcend the political divides to bring Republicans and Democrats and independents. I had even MAGA voters across Indiana who said, we voted for the president, but that's not what we stand for. That's not what we don't cheat. We don't want to cheat in Indiana. And Washington, D.C. was trying to cheat. So that's one. Second, I'll conclude with the second main point. In addition to protests, which were amazing, and rallies, people showing up in the hundreds and thousands to the State House, to committee votes, to second reading, watching on third reading, both on the House and the Senate side. But there's also a political calculus that took place in Indiana. If the president is not popular, the Republicans were confronted with two challenges, with two dilemmas. First, if they turned Indiana into 9-0, we have 9 congressional districts, currently 7 held by Republicans, 2 held by Democrats. If they changed it to 9-0, it could backfire and we could win 3 of those seats because people are angry, and the way that they drew the maps, they had to dilute a couple of districts to eliminate the 2 Democratic districts. So one was more of also practical, pragmatic position, which is let's not lose congressional seats in Indiana. The second political reason, I'll give you an example. In one district on the northwest side of Indiana, close to the Chicago region, we had a Republican, and that Republican won by a couple of percentage points a state Senate seat. He's a colleague of mine in the Indiana Chamber, Indiana State Senate. That area is very strong with our siblings in the Steelworker Union. And they fully support our congressperson, Frank Merven, who stands for union members. Had he voted for, that state senator voted for the redistricting, he would lose the support of his own community and he would turn all our organized labor against him. So some had practical reasons to avoid or to oppose the redistricting because it would cost the Indiana Senate Republicans to lose 3 to 4 seats. And losing 3 to 4 seats locally to help the president collect 2 more seats that will be washed off by another Democratic state that would probably redistrict was not worth it for Republicans in Indiana. So the decision for them was, do you stay strong in opposition to an unpopular president who's a damn lame duck president who is on his way out, versus do you stay strong, preserve as many Republican seats, and protect as many congressional seats? So the advocacy was the number one reason by tens of thousands of Hoosiers, of organizers, of community groups, and nonprofit advocacy groups. And then the second was pragmatic political calculation. But even with that pragmatic political calculation by the Republicans, they didn't have the votes to kill the legislation And the national news, all what it reported was Republicans oppose redistricting. Let me conclude by sharing with you the real story. We have 50 senators in the Indiana State Senate. For any piece of legislation to pass or to die, you need 26 votes out of 50, a simple majority. The Republicans gerrymandered our local state Senate seats that we only have 10 Democrats and 40 Republicans. 10 Democrats and 40 Republicans. If we were not there and the Republicans had to vote on it, the bill would have not passed due to lack of constitutional majority. It would have been 21 to 19, and they would have been able to bring it back for another second vote, third vote, as many times until they twist arms of their own colleagues to pass it, till they get to the 25 threshold. But it was the 10 Democrats who flipped the scales on this legislation to ensure we had more than 26 votes to kill it once and for all during this entire session. So I'll conclude by saying I appreciate your interest in this. The significance of this is unbelievable. History will record that Hoosiers and 31 state senators stood against the President of the United States. A Republican state with a minority Democrats stopped the Trump agenda, at least for now, to send the nation a story that when we get bullied, we're not afraid. We will push back, even if it's the President of the United States. And if you get bullied once and you become submissive, they will come back again and they will abuse you again. So we wanted to send a strong message. We don't get bullied here. And when we get bullied, we push back and we fight hard. So I appreciate all of you. I appreciate your commitment to justice, to equality, to organized labor, to working class families. And as I always have said, I said, I want to be remembered not as the state senator, but I want to be remembered as the person who fought in the Indiana General Assembly for the vulnerable, for the marginalized, for the voiceless, and for those who did not have multi-billion-dollar corporations and lobbyists standing behind them defending their positions. I attend the funerals of my own constituents when only 5 or 10 or 15 people attend their funerals because they were homeless before and they couldn't even have the cost or able to cover the cost of their own funerals. Those are the ones that I fight for every day. Those are the ones who are being crushed. Those are the families that we need to protect. So I appreciate you. And Mike, I'll be more than happy to answer any question or provide any additional commentary.
Great.
Michael, if I could just intervene for a sec. I see you're about to start screen sharing. Are you going to do that?
No, I was going to show a quick photo, but I don't know if I can. But this is a photo from Thursday night, the night before the hearing, because there was a big data center fight in Senator Qaddoura's district that hundreds of people showed up for. So on top of stopping I'm not seeing this work. I'm just going to stop sharing. But but we have on the night before on the eve of this historic vote, Senator Qaddoura was with hundreds of his constituents fighting against this insane data center being proposed in a Pike Township in his district. And there's we're missing this gigantic environmental water steal for data centers that is going to really hurt our water quality. And Senator Qaddoura was there too. So this is, so I just want to give major props and before handing it over to you to just the amount of hard work that Senator Qaddoura does for Indiana and for residents here. So, Alan, you want to take it away?
Well, I just want to say a couple things first. Senator Qaddoura, thank you for Mike asked a question about the state senate, and that was brilliant. But your background story was spectacular, and it's really the most heartening stories I've heard, and it's just a great American story, and it's everything that is promising, though of course there's adversity that you face in pursuing the path that you have in this country, which is unfortunate because to my mind you are exemplary for what this country needs to be about. And I thought that was a beautiful personal story that would just resonate with people all over the country, and thank you for sharing that with us. And thank you for your public service and for choosing with your experiences to take the direction you've had. And you also sound like an unbelievably exemplary public servant. So on so many fronts, I'm so happy that we have this recorded testimony of your life. It's something that I think we should consider at PDA sharing with people around the country. It was very beautiful. So thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate you, Alan. Thank you for your comments. And if I may just say really quick on I reminded people at our No Kings rally that we are a nation of immigrants, except for the indigenous people of this nation. And last time I checked, even the Puritans who came to this country escaping religious persecution from the Church of England, last time I checked, they came as undocumented immigrants.
Yeah. Thank you for
And
that too.
the passage of time does not make one generation better than the other. It only makes us more responsible and committed to the future of this nation.
Well, the next guest we have actually is Hanya Jodat, and she's going to tell everybody on the call about we're relaunching a unique national chapter called Progressive Democrats of America, Greater Middle East Alliances. And so she is next, and we're a little bit behind time, but I was wondering if maybe Hanya, you had a thought for Senator Qaddoura?
Um, Brother Fadi, assalamu alaikum to you.
Walaikum assalam. How are you?
Woo, um, your story is extremely inspiring. And I gotta say, when you mentioned something about your name being, very popular in Indiana, I chuckled a bit because you can see my name too, Hania, right?
Yeah.
But it's time that they learned every syllabus, right? And they every meaning of these beautiful exotic names that we've been struggling to, pronounce or teach people to pronounce. So Brother Fadi, you're certainly an inspiration. I think what you've done is incredible for Indiana. We're going through the same thing right now in Missouri's 4th Congressional District with a candidate that I'm consulting for, Hartzell Gray, who's moved because of the gerrymandering from the 5th
Mhm.
district now to the 4th, and now there's a fight, there's lawsuits, and we see what transpires from that. But I'm just in awe and inspired by everything you've done and said on this call. So, uh,
Well, I appreciate you. I'll tell you the issue of names. It's we are all equal citizens. We had a lieutenant governor, currently our lieutenant governor, the president of the United States, the president of the Indiana State Senate, publicly claimed that a three-fifths of a person it was a progress for our nation to help people evolve out of slavery. We still have the same nationalistic attitudes about folks who still believe in what they prescribe or describe as the good old days. Good for them, not good for most of our nation. I think I refuse the politics of exclusion. I refuse the politics of division. And I ask people, just like Dr. King asked our nation, judge us, judge our children based on our character, judge us as public servants based on our policy proposals, based on our hard work serving you. I will not accept that just because I'm different, because I'm unique, because my name is different, that I'm less worthy as a human to serve my fellow citizens. And I think I want to give credit more, not to me or to you or to anyone on this call. I want to give credit to our people. Sometimes we don't give enough credit to our people. In 2020, when I flipped the Republican district, I give the most, respect and admiration to the citizens of Indianapolis who trusted an immigrant to represent them. A proud American citizen, a proud immigrant, but it took a district and people to say, we trust you, we believe in you, we stand with you, and we will defend your positions. So I think my message to everyone on this call, there's nothing impossible in our nation. We are truly an inspirational nation. Don't get discouraged by the politics of division. This is temporary, and we went through difficult times before. And I know that I'm probably delaying a little bit more, but I promise I'll conclude with this.
Hmm.
I told folks throughout the whole last 8 months, we are a nation that went through challenges when the Puritans came pursuing freedom, it was at the expense of the indigenous people. Then we went through a revolution. Then we went through a civil war that cost more than 600,000 lives, and some historians place it at 6 million when you factor the aftermath of the war when people died because of injuries, because of wounds, because of poverty, because of other issues, and of who got impacted. But 600,000 fellow Hoosiers died, fellow United States citizens died. And then after that, we got into the suffragist movement, trying to protect or to achieve voting rights. And then we moved into black codes and Jim Crow laws. And then we had a civil rights movement, and then all the way till 2008, the first black president in the history of the United States. So, as a student of history, when I look back at the history of our nation, there are setbacks and there's progress. And we hope that we make more progress than setbacks. So let's not make someone's name a barrier in bringing the next big thing for our communities. Every child in America deserves an equal opportunity. Every respected citizen of our nation should be treated dignified, respect as a first-class citizen, not as second or third or fourth, not as three-fifths. And that's my commitment. And I teach young people, I tell them the number one lesson that I've learned from my campaign: never, ever, ever ask for permission to change the world. Unless you're younger than 18, consult with your parents first. I have to always add that disclaimer at the end. But never change, no, never seek permission. So thank you, everyone. I'll be more than happy to take a couple of more questions so that I don't delay you from your next speaker.
If you're all right with it, Senator Qaddoura, do you have a little time to hang with us into the next hour?
Not the next hour, but probably for the next 15 minutes until 5:10. I have an event that I need to go to at 5:30.
Okay, Hanya. Then I ask you, what should we do? Should we take a few questions for Senator Qaddoura, or do you have limited time? Because I know that you're.
No, I could use a thing or two from the senator, so take it away. No,
Okay, great. And
I
just to
yield
let
back
everybody
to
know
you.
too, we're going to hear again from Hanya about what we'll be doing. We're going to have a fundraiser for Progressive Democrats of America Greater Middle East Alliance. She's going to fill us in on those details. Probably tell us feel a little bit more about updates on Hartzell's campaign, but in particular, we're going to hear about the relaunching of this and the logic behind it. And it's really, to me, essential. It's fantastic, the idea of a national chapter organized around the communities from the Middle East in the United States of America, but also in relationship to U.S. foreign policy and the need for its transformation of that policy in relationship to the greater Middle East as well. So we'll be hearing from Hanya shortly, but question for Senator Qaddoura from Jim Langford from PDA, Florida. Jim, please, you're up.
Yes, first of all, Senator, I want to say how incredibly overwhelmed I am by your personal story. That was amazing. I'm very inspired. Um, and then I have a question. I have a nephew who is married to someone from Indianapolis who has been living here in St. Petersburg, Florida, and literally just left in November to move to Indianapolis. And I wanted to find out if you represent the entire city or if you represent just a portion, because I know they will be thrilled to find out that you're there.
Well, thank you, Jim. First, I appreciate your kind words. And second, Indianapolis has almost 1 million people. Each Senate district is about 138,000. I represent the upper one third of Indianapolis. So if they live in the upper one third of Indianapolis, but aside from that, I connect with fellow citizens across the state, not only in my district. So feel free to let them know. If they do a quick Google with my name, probably I'm going to be the only one that will pop up anyways, Fady, and let them shoot me an email. Would love to connect with them regardless of where they live in Indianapolis.
Absolutely. I will be glad to do that. And then if you know, going into the new year, if you have time, I work with the Progressive Caucus here in Florida. We are having a convention in I think towards the end of February, the first part of March. I would love to invite you to be a guest speaker, maybe pre-record something for us as an inspiration. I think that would be amazing. And then
It's
finally, I
always
just want to say how happy I am to see Hanya, because I have been working with her now for almost 6 years. We were Bernie delegates together, and it still thrills me to see you. So,
Thank you,
thanks,
Jim.
guys.
Thank you, Jim. Any excuse to come to Florida for weather? It's about 6 inches of snow currently in Indiana, so you don't have to push too hard for me to show up there.
By the way, the next DNC quarterly meeting, I was at the quarterly meeting in LA just this past few days, is going to be in New Orleans, I believe, in early April, maybe late March. You may want to look into that, and maybe we could meet up there as well.
You guys are knowing exactly which buttons to hit with me. New Orleans is my hometown, and I love the food of New Orleans and the Cajun food that they have and the lifestyle and all of that. So the more that you speak, the more that you're tempting me.
Thank you so much. Look, in the spirit of what we do here on our stacks to call on people who aren't familiar to raising their hands at our meetings, I'm going to call next on Arnab Salaha. I don't believe I've called on in the previous meeting. So please unmute if you can, Arnab. Thank you. Sorry, I forgot your name wrong.
Hi, yeah, no, my name's Arnab. I'm a physician. I worked in Boston during COVID-19, and I heard what you had said, Senator, about the healthcare reforms that are needed in Indiana, especially with healthcare debt and healthcare coverage. And I know that while I was working in Boston, COVID had shown a lot of U.S. healthcare system failures. And I mean, it's very clear that we need improvements to the U.S. healthcare system at this time. And I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on how to achieve progressive goals in healthcare specifically. By the way, I published a few books on this topic called Critical Improvements to the U.S. Healthcare System Following Coronavirus Disease 2019, and other books features critical improvements and Journey Back Home about related healthcare topics. But basically, my thoughts are that at this point, um, I think that progressive healthcare reform is definitely necessary. And my thoughts on that were, I think that to kind of achieve a lot of the big progressive goals that you need in healthcare, some of the books that I've written, I feel need to be widely read immediately, just to kind of forward those goals. But I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Absolutely. Well, first, thank you for your service. Thank you for publishing on this topic. And I know it can be, this can take hours and hours. I think our nation has been struggling with this for more than 120 years. So to be respectful of everyone's time, I'll make a couple of comments. First, there are different levels of reform. I serve in the Indiana superminority. So pragmatically, to pass legislation in Indiana, I have to work through or across the political aisle and push for ideas that I think can be bipartisan, and medical debt relief is one of those that is basically building. We were successful so far in building bipartisan support around this issue, and I'm hopeful that we will be able to pass some of those. So to me, that's not reform in Indiana. That's more dealing with the symptoms of a problem. The root cause of that problem are many, from the pharmaceutical companies to insurance companies. Before talking about hospital systems, specifically the insurance industry and the pharmaceutical industry and the PBMs, the pharmaceutical benefit management entities, they contribute to part of this problem. I think on a national level, as far as progressive ideas, there are different proposals. I look forward actually to reading your publications. I don't have ready thoughts at this point immediately to share of how we can reform the entire system. But I promise that I will get back with you if Mike can share with me your contact information or somehow to get back with you. I'll be more than happy to share with you my thoughts. My PhD dissertation was about healthcare in Indiana and the hospital systems and whose interest do they advance. And I came up with some conclusions that are informed by both quantitative and qualitative research. And I can tell you that the more that we move into a model that not only reforms, I think, subsidizes just the cost of healthcare, because subsidies, all what they do, they keep the health insurance costs going up, the cost of healthcare going up. And then the difference between Republicans and Democrats is the question of who subsidizes it. Neither party currently is really addressing the real issue of healthcare. And I think it requires us to look a little deeper. So Mike said in the chat that he will connect both of us, and I'll look forward to connecting with you on this topic later.
Thank you. I'd be remiss if I didn't add that, of course, PDA, while we respect reform opportunities when it's all that seems to be possible, given the nature and distribution of votes at the state, local, and of course, most significantly, national level, we are out and out advocates for single-payer universal health care to bring us in line with the other prosperous liberal democracies across the world. And we feel that would be a real blessing for America, both in terms of costs, but even more importantly, in terms of healthcare they receive. Charisse, Sebastian, you're up next. Please unmute. Charisse. Please unmute, Charisse. You just have to, there you go. You're up.
Hi, how do I get a recording of Mr. Qaddoura's?
It will be on YouTube in a couple days. I should also let maybe Mr. Senator Qaddoura know and everybody know. The reason that your videos can't be turned on is because we've been Zoom bombed a number of ways. So we take these certain steps, which is the only way to really function on Zoom to prevent Zoom bombing, is to only the speakers, featured speakers and staff members will have their videos on. But yes, we record this and we'll be up on YouTube in a couple days. We can't go live to YouTube because the Zoom bombers will destroy our YouTube account if we do that.
And I'd love to connect with Mr. Qaddoura.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Up next, then let's go to Michael Seeley. Please unmute, Michael. And maybe Senator Qaddoura, I'm assuming that Charisse can get in touch with you through your Senate office.
Absolutely. I will type maybe if in the chat an email address that I think if you, the organizers of the Zoom, maybe can share it with everybody else, but I just went ahead and typed it.
Thank you, Teresa. And please pick it up from the chat. And then Michael Seeley, you're up. Please unmute. Michael, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Hi, I was living in North Indianapolis by the Governor's Mansion as a middle school student that I first learned basketball and first learned also about gun culture, xenophobia, and racism. So I think it's marvelous and amazing that we have a progressive point person there representing the old neighborhood. What I'm wondering is, as we turn now to turn soon to the huge battle in Missouri on the same issue, I'd be curious as to what you felt were the arguments that might have been persuasive to Republicans in that more somewhat equally Republican and more and people in that more rural state. Could we learn from your campaign that the Missourians
Thank you, Michael. You're breaking up, Michael. So let's Fady answer the question about advice for Missouri.
So really quick, I would say three things. One, organizing across the state is extremely important, especially on economic issues, to bring the community together, that this is not needed. Taking representation away is not what our citizens are asking for. That was one lesson we've learned in Indiana that is extremely important. Second, legal arguments. For example, Indiana's Constitution has language that mimics language in the Pennsylvania Constitution. In 2018, 2019, a United States Supreme Court struck down districts in Pennsylvania based on the equal and free elections clause or language in the Pennsylvania Constitution, which we have similar language in Indiana. So we tried to make some legal arguments about Supreme Court precedents. And specifically, one of the two districts that they were trying to eliminate in Indiana, one of them is a racially mixed majority minority district. So we focused also on arguments as it relates to legal arguments to that. And then third, I would say, is building coalitions. I will defer to my esteemed and respected colleague here, Hania, to speak later about her experience in her state. But at least for Indiana, there was a political calculus that is specifically unique to Indiana as far as the way that the maps were drawn. It helped some Republicans come to our side because they would lose some of their seats if they supported those. So I would say build an excellent working relationship with some of your most moderate Republican colleagues across the nation, strategize with them, and be sure that you look at your secret magical number, whatever that number is, to defeat the legislation in any chamber, whether the House or the local Senate. It becomes a math problem. Look at how many Democrats you have, look at how many Republicans you have, and just direct and mobilize the state and all citizens to reach out and to pressure their elected officials in a civil, respectful way to be a no vote and redistricting. So these were the three strategies that were pursued, but with high intensity, meaning there's not a day that passed over the last 3 to 4 months without any events organizing. Tens, if not probably hundreds of thousands of emails, of text messages, of voice calls were made, meetings in districts, people going to their representatives, meeting with them, speaking with them. So really a very intense grassroots movement at the local level is the strongest correlation or correlating factor that I would say with defeating that type of legislation. But each state is different. So what happened in Indiana could be different from Missouri, from other states. And I defer to the locals in each community to decide what is the best strategy for them.
Well, out of respect for your time, I do believe we are at basically 10 after the hour, 9 after. Haley Davidson, I apologize. I know you're not one of the people who's normally asked questions, and you were next on Stack, but we'll have you up when we go back to the Stack first, Haley, and Dorothy, Carly, Heidi, and Timothy will be on the Stack too. And thank you. Just a final thought as you go, Senator Qaddoura. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Mike Olis, for inviting Senator Qaddoura. And this is the thing, we have such a focus on the federal political situation in the United States, there are brilliant locally elected politicians. You certainly are among them, sir, and it's been an honor to have you with us. And thank you for joining
Well,
us.
Alan, I just want to say thank you, Hania. Pleasure meeting with you. To the folks raising your hands, if I apologize, but I dropped my email in the chat. Please reach out to me. I'll be more than honored to answer your questions. And my concluding message to everyone, let's move forward. Let's fight for the soul of this nation. Let's not hesitate from speaking on the issues that matter to our people. Let's unite. And let's not accept anything less than dignity, compassion, love, and equality for every citizen in our nation. And be sure that we fight the politics of division and intimidation with the politics of love and compassion. Thank you. I appreciate you. I love you. And I look forward to serving with you and fighting the good fight alongside you. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your evening. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Likewise from all of us at PDA. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for
Thank you
joining
much.
us, Senator Fady Qaddoura from
Thank you.
the great state of Indiana. And we just heard about a fantastic result we got from and surprising result from the Indiana State Senate, really breaking the momentum in red states of redistricting to try to really just artificially produce a result better for the Republicans in the very, very important 2026 upcoming midterm elections, where we feel, of course, the PDA is essential in the Democratic Party. Retake the U.S. House of Representatives to contain the destruction of our constitutional democratic republic that the Trump administration is pursuing. Hanya Jodat, welcome back. And let me just say about PDA Greater Middle East Alliances and why I have, from the moment that this came on my radar screen, I think this is so essential. And there are many reasons why it's essential. And in particular, by the way, the focus on communities across the country from the Middle Eastern diaspora into the United States. And we all know, too, that the impact of U.S. foreign policy intervention in the region has, of course, produced a massive refugee problem across so many parts of the greater Middle East, right? From Syria, Libya, of course, Iraq, Afghanistan, Palestine, etc., many places. And then in terms of U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East, this is an issue, and there are analogs within domestic policy, like the issue with the criminal justice system and anti-Black racism, broadly speaking, in the United States. And it's almost a parallel with the issue of Palestine, where, there's conflagrations of violence and the story dominates the headlines. The conflagration of violence ceases. The oppression of the Palestinian people does not cease. And so it remains a tinderbox for upcoming conflagrations, but it falls off of the headlines. And then let's be honest, it falls away from being the focus of progressive activists. And we have to maintain a consistency. We have to create institutional spaces which continue in the pressure that we reorder. We have a new foreign policy, a foreign policy grounded in international law, human rights for everybody, and for just disempowered people like the Palestinians living under absolutely inhumane conditions every day, not only when there's a hot war going on, that we need to stand for their rights and to consistently advocate for it. And so the establishment of this kind of national chapter, I think it is absolutely essential for PDA to support everything that Hanya is doing to organize it. Hanya, the platform is yours.
Uh, woo, Alan, you pretty much summed it up, but I'll just, add a little bit here and there. Before we begin, I just want to send all of my love to my PDA family, to you mostly for sticking by my side to make this vision come true. We have a lot of work to do. We talk almost every day at this point, which is incredible. And, I'm honored to get Alan Minsky every single day on a call. So Donna, Jim, Mike, both of you, Mike Olis, Mike Fox, um, and whoever else is here that has been, through this process with us and has helped me immensely through my work with PDA, not just PDA Middle East Alliances, but PDA just in general. I just want to send you all of my love because you you complete the work that I do. You are the pieces of puzzle that is sometimes missing in this organizing space. So I want to thank you for that. Some of you will remember the moment we launched what was then just an idea, which is the PDA Greater Middle East Alliances. It happened in Chicago not that long ago. Um, through though, sometimes I feel like in our movement building time, it feels like a lifetime. Back then, we gathered with little more than conviction and shared understanding that progressive values do not stop at water's edge. We believe that solidarity could travel and that justice could be international, and our responsibility did not end at the borders here. And, look at what we've built so far. Because of that energy from Chicago, the energy of the movement, because of the hope and the urgency we continue to carry with us in the space of solidarity, we didn't just talk, we expanded. We organized, we grew, and today we stand here as the Progressive Democrats of America Greater Middle East Alliance, PDA's first ever non-geographical chapter, a chapter defined not by lines on the map, but by shared values, shared struggles, and shared purpose. This isn't a small achievement. Since Chicago, we've brought together an extraordinary board of leaders, organizers, thinkers, and builders who are deeply committed to shaping this chapter into something very bold, credible, and enduring. We've welcomed colleagues with lived experiences and deep expertise from across the Middle East and the global diaspora, people who understand the realities on the ground, who understand the stakes, and who know exactly why this work cannot and should not wait. This is not just a symbolic representation. This is truly is a serious leadership ready to do very, very serious work. Our board consists of community organizers, leaderships, and experts from Yemen, from Lebanon. We do have Lily Greenberg Hall on our board. We are in conversation with Dr. James Zogby, and we're hoping that he does join. I am having a talk with Omar Badar, who most of you have seen on CNN, Palestinian American expert in the region. And, we're very proud of that. A few months ago, as Alan has been aware, I was invited to Brussels to represent the PDA Greater Middle East Alliances for the international gathering powered by policymakers and from the Middle East and Democrats abroad to form partnerships. And again, let's be very clear about the scope of our vision. It is unapologetically ambitious and sometimes may not have all the answers. So this is where the progressives come together to help shift the policies and the agenda that we put forward. We're working to engage every region of the Greater Middle East, not just the places that dominate the headlines. I think the Palestinian liberation is at the forefront of all of our liberation. But again, we are not just covering or talking about the crises that cycle through the news. We're covering every region in that part of the world, every community, because justice is not selective. Solidarity is not conditional. And progressive values mean nothing if they only apply when it is easy and when it's convenient. Alan, I would have to say, if you agree, our mission is to listen deeply, to learn honestly, and to evaluate voices that are too often ignored or erased, to connect struggles across the borders, and to wave those realities directly into the broader progressive movement here at home. One of the things that I have learned in my working with in congressional spaces with candidates who are running for office, one of the few things that they continue to struggle with is how do we present foreign policy? How do we present and how do we create talking points around foreign policy, especially with everything that's going on around the world? And this chapter can serve as a home for folks who are courageous enough to run for Congress, for Senate, for state Senate, for leadership all across, to learn and to see where the root cause of the problem is. And so we are willing to provide that home for them through what we would call an anti-war primer, foreign policy primer. The mission is deeply rooted in the history of progressive Democrats of America itself, I would say. Since 2004, PDA has been a driving force of grassroots activism, pushing where others hesitated, organizing where others compromised, PDA has fought relentlessly for Medicare for all, for a Green New Deal, for a radical and economic justice, and for an end to endless wars long before it was politically fashionable. PDA has always stood for people over profit, humanity over militarism, and courage over complacency. And we did see that commitment most clearly in 2016 when PDA stood on the front lines of the political revolution alongside Senator Bernie Sanders. That movement did more than challenge an election. It changed expectations. It told millions of people that a better world was not naive, that justice was not radical, and that demanding more was not unrealistic. That message did not disappear. It evolved into local chapters, national campaigns, coalitions, and into what we are building together right now. One of the things that Alan and I have been talking about is inviting Representative Rashida Tlaib to also join our movement with this chapter, which is why we do need your help to be able to raise money, to be able to expand, and to create this chapter that I'd like to call our chapter. No matter whether you are from that region of the world who's been impacted by US foreign policy, or you live here and you're a part of PDA, this is your chapter also. This is your home. And so the Greater Middle East alliances exist because we refuse to pretend that what happened abroad is separate from what happens at home. Senator Nina Turner always says what happens over here, what happens over there happens over here, what happens over here happens over there. And that is so true. You cannot fight for justice domestically while ignoring injustices internationally. You cannot speak about democracy without confronting how US policy shapes lives far beyond our borders. And you cannot call for peace while accepting a system built on permanent war. So our purpose is very, very clear. We're here to bring progressive values to the global stage, to stand in real principled solidarity with people across the Middle East, to demand diplomacy over destruction, to advocate for human rights, equality, and dignity without expectations, without exceptions, without double standards, and to say loudly and without apology that the struggle for justice is one shared struggle across every border and every community. Some will say this vision is very ambitious, too complex, too bold. We know it, we understand it, we're ready for it, and we're not backing down. Chicago taught us something very powerful when we gather together. When committed people come together, people with clarity, courage, and heart, we can build something far bigger than what anyone thought was possible. This is exactly what this alliance represents. So we're not just waiting for permission. We are not waiting for a safer moment or for an easier path. We're building now, we're organizing now, and we're doing it all together. Something that Brother Fady just mentioned that really hit hard for me is how, reaching out to the other side, the rural communities helped shift and change the result of his election through a gerrymandering. And I think what people in their core want is for the wars to end, for the money that goes to spend billions and trillions of dollars on endless wars to be spent back home on resources. This desire is not just for the progressives, it's rural America as well, which is why, Alan, I'm incredibly proud of the Rural New Deal. To be represented in certain areas of our country where people just want for our money to not fund wars, to be spent back home for farmers, for folks who are living 3 to 4 jobs, who cannot make ends meet when our federal minimum wage has not changed for years and our living cost is so high to where people are filing for bankruptcy. Mothers cannot pay for groceries when they go to the grocery stores. Why should a mother have to limit what they purchase for their child? Why do we have money for wars and not for our own children in this country? And the money that we sent to buy bombs, they killed Black and brown children overseas. There is something that is very wrong with that. So through this chapter, we are hoping to demand a better world, to be extremely aggressive about what our ask is, to partner with our congressional allies in Congress from the Congressional Progressive Caucus. And look, I am not shy I am not shy to take that step and talk to Republicans who are anti-war. No way, shape, or form, right? And so, again, our agenda is very clear. It's extremely ambitious. We're going to work through it. Again, we're not going to have all the answers. But again, I will rely on my PDA family to guide us through the challenges of this chapter. And we are hoping to schedule a virtual fundraiser for the Greater Middle East Alliances to kick us off. I'm actually going to try and see if I can attend a feminist policy conference in Barcelona that's happening at the end of January to see how we can build these partnerships and these bridges globally. But one thing is, this is a really heavy task, but my God, what an incredible group of people to bring it to life. So, Alan Minsky, I cannot express how much I love and adore you,
Same here. Mhm.
how much you have shaped my career. You, Marcy Winograd, and I would have to say Norman Solomon
Mhm.
have been my mentors in this movement building. And my God, I'm so humbled.
Well, thank you. And we are all honored by your joining us in this initiative. It's a tremendously step forward for PDA. It's an essential step. And I want to highlight a couple things from what you said. First of all, I think we'll do a fundraiser in early January. Look, we've all been very engaged with since October 7th, 2023, and all that followed from it with calling for peace, calling for justice for the Palestinian people, obviously bemoaning what happened on October 7th, but going forward with what happened to the people of Gaza, standing in solidarity with them, calling for peace, calling for end for U.S. support for what rapidly became clear was a genocidal slaughter of people in Gaza. And we all have been in contact with people who were supportive of our position and wanted to see greater solidarity across America. And so in advance of this fundraiser, everybody on the call now, think about people who you might want to invite to this fundraiser, people who are active in the movement around peace in Palestine and Gaza. Because look, there's no two ways about it. When you look at the people on the political spectrum who took, I'm sorry to say this, but the correct position very early on what was transpiring in Gaza. And again, I mentioned even on the course of this call, Cori Bush, and of course that meant she was going to be gone after. Remember, it was Cori, not Rashida, who introduced the original ceasefire issue, but it has been progressives. And I think there's an awareness now among, sometimes even, people whose economic politics may not match with our policy positions, but come from immigrant communities, Middle Eastern immigrant communities who recognize that it has been the progressive Democrats who've had the right position, stated like that, on Middle East across the board, going back to opposing the Iraq War, right, opposing what happened in Libya, opposing all of the implosions that have created such catastrophes for people across the Middle East, created such a diaspora over the last 50 years, and the United States being so central into so much damage that was done across the region. And consistently, it has been progressive Democrats. And so to really anchor, but even as I said earlier, even amongst progressive Democrats, the issue ebbs and flows. And we need to bring this concentrated and communicate out across the whole Democratic Party. And again, to many, now a growing wing of the Republican Party that is opposed to U.S. foreign interventionism. Now, having said that, before I call on Donna, just for her thoughts, from the time that this was launched to the present, of course, domestically, and it's important too to note that this particular is a national chapter of PDA. Obviously, when it comes into the electoral wing of this, it only will pertain to people who are in the United States and citizens in that particular work. But it's a national chapter, and communities from the Middle Eastern diaspora, especially more recent ones, but going back across generations, are broadly drawn to progressive democratic politics, and the communities need support. And we were always looking forward to having that be just a strong component of what this chapter is about, depending on how hot the foreign policy issues are. But now, in the Trump administration, and you can just point to his comments about Representative Ilhan Omar and Somali refugees in Minneapolis, a community I have had some direct experience with, and is just such a beautiful community. And, we in Southern California witness the attacks on the Latino community. And we know that some of the first raids from ICE were against Chinese immigrants, but the kind of fear and generalized attack is certainly equal among people from the Middle Eastern diaspora. And we have to stand in solidarity with the people of these communities. We have to defend them. And we have to, again, with this chapter, have a space where we can have a clear and concentrated message out in opposition to the attacks on what are, as we just saw from Senator Fady Qaddoura today, the brilliant contributions made by these recent immigrant communities across the country that in so many ways and so often and almost exclusively are exemplary immigrant communities for what the American project has always been best in what it's about. And at this hour of history, we have to have a very concentrated voice making that statement out. And I think that this chapter will achieve that as well.
And one thing I've noticed too, I'll add, I'm sorry, Donna, I just wanted to mention this quickly. Before before October 7th, right? Many people who ran for office refused to talk about foreign policy, refused to talk about, even put anything remotely mild on their pages because of their fear of getting having AIPAC come for them, attack them. And it's just not AIPAC. There are many other organizations that are working under the umbrella of AIPAC that come in and just completely, we know this already, we don't really need to go over it. But having seen what has transpired and what happened for the past 2 years, I am seeing this courage from younger generation saying, not on our dime. We are not going to allow for this happen. Therefore, if I am running for office, I am going to make the anti-war movement my main concentration and main topic, right? And I'll use Hartzhofer as an example. When we sat down and talked about strategy on foreign policy, he said, Hania, I do want to talk about the genocide of Gaza on our website, having come from receiving an email myself from AIPAC saying we would love to meet with him, right?
Okay.
Which sat in our spam folder. We never responded to that. But he was pushing the team to say, no, I am going to talk about this because when we preserve the funds and we bring it back home, it is my community that's going to benefit from it, profit from it. So I am going to be unapologetically talking about what's happening in Yemen. I am going to talk about Palestine. I am going to talk about, bombing of Iran, if it's not, and any violation of, international law. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that. And so we want for this chapter to serve as a home for folks to receive all of this information that they need. And one person I just saw give a heart in the chat, Dan O'Neill, I love you. I didn't mention you, recognized you, but yeah.
He had Hanya the messages. Hi, this is
Hey, Hanya.
William Walters. All of a sudden, teleported into my office space here, and Tyler Rivera as well, who somebody pointed out is the handsome guy in the background earlier. And I've just been really I've been able to host these guys. They're here for the DNC meeting, and Tyler, of course, is technical genius, and we wouldn't have been able to pull off the event on Thursday without him. And it's just been great having, and also Kendall was here as well. So some of the members of the YPDA steering committee just wanted. Tyler's been in Southern California for first visit ever for Williams, so they're going to go off to the beach.
Yeah, they're looking a little.
I'm going to be a tourist for a little bit.
Background, yeah, they're looking a little Cali there.
Yeah. That's especially this guy.
Donna, my sun is not my skin is not ready for the sun that's about to hit me. Like this is going to be brutal.
Your team is winning right at the moment, William.
Oh,
I haven't even looked. Yeah, we're playing you today.
You're gonna blister.
Yes, we are.
You're gonna blister.
Everybody, people may have recorded the game, so let's let them don't betray results.
So sorry.
It's okay. You're great. You got your orange shirt on there. Yeah. Well, anyway, alas. So Donna, let's go back to the focus on PD. Thank you to these guys, and they're off, and I'll see you soon. Okay.
Bye, guys.
See you later, PDA family. See ya.
See ya.
So Donna, for Hanya, sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, Hanya, first of all, thank you for everything you're doing. It's been just remarkable, even from afar, to watch your growth. Has been amazing. So just so great, sister, to watch that. I have been close to Rania for some time, and one of my sons, his the people who stood up for him at his wedding was Miss Rachel and her husband, Aaron Arcuso, who have been very much putting their selves on the line financially after working a long time to get where they were, to speak the truth to power, to speak the truth to everyone. And one thing I want to ask you, I mean, behind me is the banner from long ago, PDA's Healthcare Not Warfare banner. Unfortunately, we seem to be backing right into that campaign again. Norman Solomon and I were the co-chairs of that campaign originally. So I'm wondering, from your point of view, in this world, we're not coming into a real clean situation in this world right at the moment, of course. How can we, who are out here in the trenches trying to support candidates who have wide varieties of view on various countries, how can we best communicate that we care about the Palestinian people? We care about the people in Syria. We care about the people in Burma. We care about the people in Myanmar. We care. We don't want any of these people to be killed by our bombs. So, how do you perceive that as an anti-war engine? How do you perceive your chapter is going to move us forward? Big question. What do you think?
Well, no, there's a lot to unfold here, Donna, and I don't think we necessarily have the time to talk about all of that,
No,
which is really
no.
important. But I'm hoping to be able to grab Alan for maybe a separate call where we can do one just based on the anti-war movement, and we can maybe perhaps bring Representative Talib also to talk about what it takes to move this movement forward. But I think it's through education, Donna. Right.
Mhm.
I think one of the things that is really important is for people to really understand how the US military operates and how people in Congress profit from this war machine, whether it's through stocks, whether it's through, APAC, whether it's through whatever means that pushes the war machine forward that we have had a very hard time challenging, right? And for years we've tried. But I think the younger generation is also going to help us get this message across as well. They are very bold. APAC and the propaganda machine really does underestimate the intelligence of this new generation through access to social media, right? And just having conversations and growing up with people who are from Palestine, who are from Yemen, who are from Iran. This is how solidarity is built, right? My son goes to a very, very diverse school, right? His he has a mix of friends from all across the world, right? And he does talk to me about, certain things when he does come home. And I don't shy away from being open in my household about what is happening in the Middle East and how that's impacting certain students who are going to school with him, to create empathy, to create friendship, to create that bond, right? And so I feel like this chapter is going to serve as a place for education as well, and helping introduce policies in collaboration with our allies from the Congressional Progressive Caucus to really push for some of these policies to be at the forefront of our conversations, right? Um, uh, Another thing is really for us to rally behind very courageous candidates who are running in certain districts that need our help. I was talking to a donor in Northern California. It was me and Hartzell. His name is George Bisharat. He's one of the most respected Palestinians in our community. And he said, Hania, I have promised myself to open my wallet to every single candidate who's running on the pro-Palestinian message, an anti-war message, right, this term. And so I think, supporting candidates through finances, deploying volunteers on the ground, making sure that we're phone banking, and also providing a space where they can come and grab their information. So that when they're asked on CNN or some propaganda, a news channel, well, what do you support this and that and the other? Really touch upon, the root of the cause of, why we are here in this moment. I think those are very important. But hey, Alan, I'm up for it if you want to, organize something for us where we ginger. I'm sorry, ginger. How do I spell ginger? That I didn't. That was on a. That
It's a
wasn't
good
on my
word.
big
It's a
chart
good
today.
word, ginger.
That
It's
wasn't
almost
on
just
my
like
big
this is a little bit of ginger in the Broncos uniform, Donna. If you want to go for that, a little bit of ginger
Thank
in
you.
Donna's hair. Yeah.
I'd do it. I'd do it. I would. Hanya, thank you. I think it's going to be an amazing, amazing effort. And of course, my mind's going 1,000 miles an hour in other directions. Alan always has to let me go ahead and do that and then rein me in a bit. I'm
That's how
not
we
in
get.
your
That's how we get
time,
the
but
insights. Yeah. Yeah.
this important point about younger people knowing about how to use the internet and how to their benefit. I mean, we older folks, even those of us who think ourselves proficient, do not know all of the social platforms that they do, and the way they use them is magnificent. So I think it's a wonderful point, and I keep preaching to all of us who are older: replace yourself. It's the best thing you can do right now is replace yourself in terms of your movement work and your work. If you are an anti-war person like so many of us, that's how we entered this space. Maybe this will be a space you want to work with Hanya.
I'll give you a quick example, and I'll stop there. But sanctions has been something that I've been passionately studying for the past few years, especially through my work with Roots Action, and that is also a weapon of war we don't necessarily talk about, right? But when you
Yeah,
really sit
absolutely.
down and break down what sanctions do, someone in their right mind is going to say it is putting people using hunger as a weapon of war
Yes,
has never worked. So there are different elements to the anti-war movement that I'm hoping this chapter does cover, and but all that really depends on whether or not we can expand as a chapter. It is, again, it's a heavy task, so we
that's
are going to
brilliant though.
need the
Good.
support. Yeah, we are going to need the support, monthly donations. We are going to hopefully have a successful fundraiser so we can expand and bring folks who are experts in that area. And one thing I do want to note here is that I'll put I'll put our website in the chat, but folks who are working and who are uh, on our board we have Dr. Aisha Joman, who is the president of Yemen Relief Foundation, one of the only organizations that is in Yemen right now providing food to children and families who are going through hunger. We have Hassan El Tayyib, who's with FCNL, right, who's in Congress and Senate every single day, delivering policy proposals and anti-war platform. We have Lily Greenberg Call, who's one of our, I would say, youngest board members, who served on Biden's as the first Jewish representative, Biden appointee, who resigned over the war of Gaza. So we will do the best we can to deliver on all these promises. So, but it's a challenge, and I'm not gonna lie. But we got it. We got it covered. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, and also, yeah, I encourage that people to, if you can, kind of watch the little Democracy Now's summaries every morning, the news summaries. They start every show with about a 10 to 15-minute segment, which opens with news headlines, and you'll see that the hot war in Gaza currently is not over. The ceasefire has done none of that. There's still bombs being dropped, slaughtering people. It's heartbreaking as ever. And I do worry. I worry in particular about what's going to happen between the United States of America and Venezuela in the next couple weeks. It's a little hard to quite figure out how aggressive this may turn out to be. Will it be an actual land invasion? Will they just continue to ratchet up the blockage of anything going in and out of Venezuela, which has, of course, been horrific with the slaughter of the people on the speedboats, and it obviously escalated on Friday. So then how further marginalized does what's transpiring in the Middle East get? We obviously have to be a strong anti-war voice in terms of the Western Hemisphere and Venezuela. but never lose sight of what's also going on in the Middle East. And I really think the chapter can be an assistance, and by the way, also an assistance as a heightening our voice, along with our obviously end wars and occupations IoT, opposing all of this Trump, Trump, the guy who wins the FIFA Peace Prize. What a joke, right? Creating hot wars and death all over the world. I mean, the stuff with the speedboats is just straight up murder. Um, and uh, and so with Venezuela, I think this chapter can play a role also in strengthening. And there is, of course, a direct connection between the Venezuelan offensive and the Middle East because of the centrality of oil production in both regions. But it can also strengthen our anti-war voice, this chapter, in relationship to something like Venezuela too. So something to keep in mind, the way that will also function with this chapter. And of course, that's something that I actually meant to bring up at the top of this meeting, but the news from the beach in Australia led with that, as opposed to what happened just on Friday. And again, the Trump administration, right, throwing everything at the wall and creating chaos. Just 2 days ago, 2.5 days ago, that they took an oil tanker, escalating the aggression against. I see Donna, you're still with us. Quickly, your thoughts on Venezuela and anything you're
Well,
seeing?
yeah, I mean, I'm terrified, Alan, really about that situation because, like you, I mean, Trump straight up murdered, please, right? There's no question about that. And he's itching. He's just itching to take him on. And oil must be behind all of it. But, it, I listen to a lot of different commentaries and so forth, and you hear people say it feels like every American president has to find his war, his war to wage somewhere. And I think most of us, one thing I think about a lot, I have a son who's a veteran who suffers from post-traumatic stress. And I always said when he enlisted in the Army that I worried as much about him learning to kill as I worried about him killing. And he has always told me that I don't want to know what he had to do as a part of military intelligence. I don't want to hear those things. And I probably don't. But now I know that my son had to. And he had to see him and wit. Why? I don't want any mother's son to do that. I just don't. And I think if we go at it, Hanya, I think Norman is such a wealth of information, right, on the anti-war movement, and just so brilliant, and always puts the humanity at the forefront. And I think provided, and we just heard oh my God, Fady, that state senator, oh wow, the humanity in that man that he put forward. And if I think it's similar to the health justice movement, in that if we keep putting the humanity forward, always forward,
Donna,
that people feel it.
uh, sorry to cut you off. You mentioned Norman, so I think it's right to maybe talk about this here, is that Roots Action had created what's called a foreign policy primer, where we would vet candidates based on how many of those bullet points they pass, right?
Right.
And we have now turned that into something that's a national template, a package that we can now present to folks who are running for Congress. And that's something that I'm hoping to adopt with the help of Alan for Greater Middle East Alliances. So these can also like shape and shift our questionnaires and endorsement process, and seeing what candidates we want to get behind as a chapter, right? We are a part of PDA, but we also have to be very careful about the anti-war messaging, which is going to be at the very center of this chapter, this international chapter. And so again, it's just really sad to see what's happening in this world, and it's so sad to see it happen without any. Um, does the law apply to certain people, certain countries? It doesn't. And it's, for me, what my concern with the whole Venezuela situation is that Iran is going to get at some point involved in all of this, because Venezuela is a great ally of Iran right now. And if the plan is to have a regime change in Iran at any cost, any means necessary, how would this, if they are successful in Venezuela, what happens to Iran? And again, I always have to be very mindful that Iran's regime is one of oppression. I will say this, but you speak to many Iranians on the ground who say, we don't want military action on our soil. No, any regime change has to happen within a country where people decide the fate of that country, not a foreign power who's used to killing, who operates a killing machine across the world. That doesn't seem right to me. Whether it's in Venezuela, Iran, and now what's happening with the rebuilding of Gaza, which is a whole different point of discussion, which is frustrating to watch unfold. But yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And again, PDA Greater Middle East Alliances. I think we've added a G in there, folks, to be really hone in on how expansive we want the chapter's orbit to be. And we will be having a major event as a fundraiser, and that will be in some respects beyond this particular call today, a coming out party. It will be after the New Year's in 2026. And of course, by the way, on the Venezuela thing, I do want to say I think we do need to sometime in the next couple of weeks on a town hall focus on the subject, and we will do that. And in particular, its implications not only for geopolitics, as Tanya mentioned, but also within the Western Hemisphere. And so I'll have no illusions. This who knows where they go. Rubio is very, very driven as the Secretary of State to see Cuba fall. It's been there since 1959. And then people also see the consecutive elections of progressives in Mexico as something that a portion of the American political establishment, economic establishment are not happy about either. So this is going to have a vast impact. And of course, one of the excuses, and well, below the surface, because they don't announce it as such, but the amount of Chinese trade that's been taking place with South American countries and the powerful South American countries is something that the Trump administration wants to undermine. So we'll get to that in an upcoming town hall. But for now, Hanya, your final thoughts, and thank you for everything you're doing. And we're going to continue. Let's just have you on as a regular every quarter at least on these PDA national town halls to give updates on this fantastic chapter. We're developing a unique national chapter. And yeah, final thoughts for the day.
I'm just in awe of you all and how every single Sunday, and this is outside of, the chapter, and how every single Sunday there's almost 300 plus people on this call for hours coming together. And you could be anywhere, but you choose to be here. And help push this forward. A lot of people, someone asked me, Alan, the other day, how do you do this work without crashing? I said, it's the people. It's the people in this movement that help me move forward, right? Because we've had some major losses, but we've also had some major victories. So I'm just, I'll just say that I'm going to rely again on every single one of you on this call to bring at least 2 or 3 people to that fundraiser that we're going to have. Reach out to your neighbors who are from that country, from the countries, in the greater Middle East, whether it's from Yemen, Afghanistan, Iraq, whether it's from Iran. If you know someone who could benefit from being a part of this chapter, please do invite them to that call. Go through your phone book and see who you know, whose name is a bit exotic, and you think they may be able to find a home, in that chapter. Please call them, please invite them, and we'll circle back with more information and more projects that we're going to be working on. And I very much look forward to 2026 and not only having more socialist progressives take over Congress, because they also help our chapter grow as well. Right? So we all work hand in hand. And yeah, looking forward to seeing if Representative Tlaib will join our board of directors, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Well, thank you so much, Hanya. And again, check out the website. And then again, only a few weeks from now, I'm sure we'll actually have you on briefly to announce again the fundraiser on as we're on the eve of that. Thank you so much, Hanya Barnes, Hanya Jodette, for joining us. And Donna Smith, thank you as always for your contributions. And I know, Mike Fox, we skipped over our PDA to-dos at the hour break. It was Senator Fady was amazing, and everybody was really hanging on his every word. And so we just sort of flowed through. But I think at this point, we're going to go to family time, Mike Fox. And the two guys in my house are still haven't left. They're going to miss the sunshine on the beach if they don't hurry. And so Mike Fox, why don't I put a ribbon and bow on the town hall? Everybody stay. If they had a question, they can get on the stack, and during family time, have an opportunity to share their thoughts. And for now, though, let me just say I want to thank again Senator. Boy, I want to make sure I get his name correct again here. Senator Fady Qaddoura. Fady Qaddoura from Indiana. Brilliant sharing of what transpired this past week in the Indiana State Senate, and also sharing his background story, which was brilliant and absolutely harmonized with the presentation from Hanya Jodat about the PDA Greater Middle East Alliances chapter. Its relaunch and very, very ambitious, and we're going to follow through and even surpass our ambition on the chapter. I think it's going to be great. And I do have to say, by the way, for folks who don't know, I mean, across the country, among the network of activists and community leaders and scholars, Hanya has just a phenomenal set of connections and respect and reverence across multiple communities in the country, in the world. So it's going to be a brilliant chapter. And so thank you to Hanya. Thank you to Senator Qaddoura. Thank you to Mike Olis for setting up the interview and leading the interview with Senator Qaddoura. Thank you, Matt Fox. Thank you, Donna Smith, Jim, and everybody else on the PDA team in the background helping out. And we're going to go to family time, and join us next week for another PDA town hall. I do want to mention two guests who I would love to try to get in the next few weeks. I'm not sure that we can actually have Reverend Jackson on a call, given his health circumstance, but I'm thinking about, just reaching out and connecting again with the folks at Rainbow Push, and around Christmas time, maybe celebrating Reverend Jackson's work. I had a brilliant conversation with a progressive rabbi at the DNC, actually the husband of PDACA's endorsed candidate for governor, Betty Yee. I had a great conversation with her. And by the way, the California governor's race is really, really just sort of insane thing right now. But Betty is actually getting some poll numbers and getting some support, and we do feel she's a really, really good candidate, and a very unique candidate in that, for her to be a progressive and to advocate for so many of our policies, some of our most ambitious policies, for a governor to endorse, and also have been the state controller, and to know what the budget looks like and what's possible with the budget and everything financial about the state. It's a very unique and powerful candidacy. And hopefully it'll gain greater traction going forward. Time is not that long until the primary, but gaining some momentum there, very interesting. Anyway, Jesse Jackson, celebrating Reverend Jackson. I'll be talking to the people at PDA who have the contacts around that to see what we maybe can pull off in advance of Christmas. Again, I think Reverend Jackson has been in the hospital recently, and it'd be great to have this opportunity around the holiday seasons to celebrate his work. And for people who don't know, the PDA, at least two of the central founding individuals with PDA, Steve Cobble and Tim Carpenter, the original political director and executive director of PDA, their lifelong partnership as activists was forged in the Rainbow Coalition campaigns of Reverend Jackson in the 1980s. So we have those roots at PDA. And then the other thing I'm interested in too, and it came up a little bit, was seeing if maybe Ms. Rachel might want to join us for one of our holiday shows. Ms. Rachel has been, of course, she's somebody who does digital work and television work for young people, and she has just been an outspoken advocate for the sanctity of human life. And talk about a thing that we need to always reflect upon and amplify during the holiday season. But of course, it was outspoken around Gaza, and has been, of course, very attacked for that, and also heralded. And we do have a few people who have contacts with her, right? And maybe reach out to her and see if we can get a show together with
Maybe for
Ms.
that
Rachel.
fundraiser in January for the chapter.
That would be great. Of course, that could be fantastic. And between Rania and Donna Smith, we have some contacts there, and just somebody who's every word that I've heard from her on these issues over the last year been just perfect. And there's so much love for her among peace activists across the world. Well, look, we are going to go to family time. Before we go, I was wondering why Jim raised his hand, because Jim's on staff. So Jim, if you can unmute and share your thoughts, and thank you, Don, as always. And Jim, yeah, what's on your mind right now if you want to share before we just quickly go to family time?
Yeah, just before you leave, Alan, I wanted to say, well, while we have been doing this afternoon, I got a blurb came across my phone that Congresswoman Ilhan Omar's son has been detained by ICE. They were wanting
Oh
him
my
to
God.
prove his citizenship. Luckily, he did have his passport. I think he was coming out of a Target or something, some store, and they snatched him. So I just wanted to pass that on. It was kind of in keeping with everything that we've been discussing this afternoon. Um, things are totally out of hand. So he
Well,
has been harassing her constantly. So
oh my. I mean, I have to say that if people don't know, Ilhan Omar is, of course, from Minnesota. The DNC chair, Ken Martin, I was at the meeting where he was elected, winning over Ben Wickler. I have good relationships with Ben Wickler, good relationships with Ken Martin. In many respects, though, Martin was both the candidate supported by rank and file DNC members for the work he had done inside the DNC, but also positioned himself as a more sort of policy-wise, more explicitly progressive candidate. And then Wickler, I think, hurt himself as a candidate by receiving a lot of money from Reid Hoffman. But Ben Wickler is a really good guy. I'll say that. But he'd been supported by Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. So when Martin won, it was seen as, something of a rebellion within the DNC against the political establishment in a way that was seen as a victory for the more progressive forces. Well, he's from Minnesota, and he claims as his background legacy the lessons and political lessons of Paul Wellstone, Senator Paul Wellstone. But very conspicuously in the crowd that day, counting the votes and rooting for Ken Martin, was our great, and I've developed a great relationship with Keith Ellison, fantastic, currently Attorney General, almost became the head of the DNC, of course, in early 2017 with PDA's support, until the establishment intervention led to Tom Perez being introduced as a candidate. So he was there rooting for Ken Martin, and Ilhan Omar was just there the whole time pulling for Ken to win. So I do trust that Ken and the DNC establishment will have her back. And, I just many times across the public events I was emceeing or involved in at the DNC press conferences and our event on Thursday, wanted to highlight what's going on with Ilhan Omar, who I myself have gotten a very good working relationship going with, and she's she understands and I understand that we both have a complete relationship of solidarity and support with her, and we all need to step up on a very personal level. This is a very personal attacks on a person who's been very brave, very, very brave throughout her life, across her entire life's experience, and including, much like AOC, much like Rashida Tlaib, to have to stand as a public servant, to brilliantly serve your community, and to face the kind of animosity she faces. Jim, thank you for bringing that up. Let's all do everything we can to show solidarity for the Somali community across the country, but in Minneapolis, the Twin Cities in particular, her son, and for Representative Omar herself. Thank you for that. And let's take it away to family time. We'll be back next week with another PDA town hall. And bye for now. On the recording, stay for family time in person.